I think we're okay. Welcome. This is the 5th meeting of the Desegregation Advisory Group. I want to thank everyone for attending, and especially those of you who have been on this journey with us for the last few meetings. We very much appreciate your not just attendance, but the way that as a group we have been collectively respectful and we've been collectively engaged. I said at a previous meeting that when we are able to connect the collective wisdom of this group and put into action a world-class education plan, that as we do that work and tell the story, there will be a ripple effect around the country. And that we may, through the work that we do, actually influence the conversation about education around the entire United States. And so the work that we do is for our children and for this community. But as we do this work and do it well and share our story in interesting and exciting ways, then there'll be a bubble effect, a ripple effect that I think we'll, over time, be able to see in other places because of what we do and who we are and how we did it. We want to do 5 things tonight. Of course, we want to do some self-introductions. Then we want to take a moment and get your reflections, those of you who were able to participate, on especially the last meeting, but anything that you want to share about how you've experienced this set of conversations that we've had. We then want to spend the bulk of the meeting with a presentation of the draft comprehensive education report and get your feedback by first general questions that you may ask while we're in plenary, but then as our process is to go into small group and let people take a deep dive in small group and then come back and share their thinking, reflections, ideas, concerns. And then we'll wrap it up probably with a couple high fives or elbow bumps because this is the 5th of 5, okay? Could we go around and would you be willing to introduce yourself, your name and your role, affiliation in the community that you work in and represent? Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Chris Durbin, and I live in Sausalito, and I am on the board of Arts Plus Bayside MLK Foundation.
Pass it this way, yeah.
Joshua Barrow, Marin City resident, Sausalito Marin City School Board.
Laura Cox, Bridge the Gap College Prep or after school program, but serving both Willow Creek and Bayside MLK students.
Mm-hmm. Vanessa Lyons, garden teacher, Bayside MLK.
Yasmin McGrain, parent of a 5th grader and 7th grader at Willow Creek and Sausalito resident.
Ibis Teasdale, local Sausalito native and mother of 2 little kids.
Kirsten Thomas, Bayside parent and parent of a 1-year-old.
Okay.
Louis Edney, I'm the intervention specialist at BMLK. I'm also the president of the local CTA.
Averill Wilson, a volunteer through 10,000 Degrees at Bayside MLK and currently the substitute 3rd grade teacher.
Ted St. Germain, district master plan architect.
Lisa Bennett, Sausalito resident and with a community group called Indivisible Sausalito.
Could you hold one moment? Just your name and your community affiliation.
Deborah Turner, Sausalito Marin City School Board trustee.
Please continue.
Jamie Whittington, Sausalito resident and community member.
Good afternoon, Tom Riley, Sausalito City Council member.
Welcome, welcome.
I'm Robert Clark, I'm the Chief Business Officer for the school district.
Thanks, yes.
I'm Samantha Hunt, a field representative for Mark Levine, who represents Marin County in the State Assembly.
Okay.
Joe Burns, City of Sausalito Council.
Kurt Wimson, I'm a parent of Willow Creek students and Willow Creek Academy Board President. I'm Robert Rubin. I'm a civil rights attorney and I'm a community member.
And you are, sir? Go ahead.
I'm Steve Ayala. I'm an admin assistant here at the school district.
Thank you.
Damian Morgan, Marin City Community Services District.
Okay.
Board member.
Thank you. And?
Mwisi Kongo Malonga with Leadership Inc.
And I'm Omawali Satterwhite. I've been invited to support your work as facilitator of this process. So we would like to begin with some overview of the DAG mission. So Superintendent Otoko. Yes. Here.
Yeah.
Find your name and check the date, and if you're here for the first time, then on the back side, write your name in and check the date, please. Yeah, thank you. No, just.
So the mission of the DAG. It's primarily laid out in the settlement and many of you have heard it before, but we are and have been convening to do the following. Make recommendations to the Sausalito Marin City School District Board of Trustees on all programs, education programs, how to reduce racial segregation, how to improve education programs. That's really the mission of this group. We're also required to meet at least twice a year. I thank all of you that have at least doubled and almost probably tripled that commitment. Our composition, we were required to invite representatives, including but not limited to students, parents of students, public school administrators, teachers, community organizations, the Marin County Office of Education, the Housing Authority, Health and Human Services, the City of Sausalito, and the Marin City Community Services District, all again for the purposes of reviewing and inputting policies, procedures, and practices, and any changes relating to the education program. Review and input on student demographic data, review and input of the impact of any program on student demographic data within the district, and specifically on the race and ethnicity of students in any program. Review input and community feedback regarding the education programs in the district. Review and input relating to health and social services and other support programs available to students. And review and input relating to other activities and events within the district that may affect racial segregation. Dr. Omo and his team have been very diligent in coming up with the reporting requirements. That's why there's folks diligently taking notes at all these meetings, but within 45 days of any of these meetings, the group shall publicize a written summary of the meeting. That written summary will be provided to the monitor and the superintendent will review the summary to identify potential improvements or modifications to district policies, practices, and identify any potential partnerships with other organizations. And that is pretty much the mission and the vision of the DAG. So what I want to do before we jump into the meat of the agenda today is Chelsea, who has been a participant in all of these meetings, and unfortunately, along with Dr. Leimer, who's also been presenting the bulk of the survey data and stuff like that. Both of those regular participants are feeling a little under the weather, and given the current advisories around cold and flu symptoms, a lot of people are opting to stay home. And so They unfortunately are not here today, but Chelsea a couple meetings ago set up a base camp way for people to, some people process in different ways. Some people process right away. Some people like to sleep on it. Sometimes things comes up days later. And people have been using that as a forum to reflect on these meetings. And so there were some reflections that came up after the last meeting that we just wanted to give a little bit of space and time to. And whether or not you reflected on base camp, but you had a reflection from the last meeting that you think is maybe particularly important to the group, we wanted to just open up the space for those reflections to be shared. And so
thank you. Anyone who was at the last meeting, and I actually think if you have thoughts about any of the meetings, you certainly can share them. But your reflections about the dialogue that occurred at the last meeting, and once again, your main thoughts, takeaways, reflections, synthesis, analysis of what we did and where we are. Any thoughts or feedback? Yeah.
Thank you. Possibly many of you already read what I wrote on Basecamp, but in response to, it took a suggestion that we share the conversation that's been taking place on the forum that Chelsea set up. One of the things we talked about a lot last week were the results of the surveys. And Christina's done a fabulous job of going back through and, really, well, I think everyone did a fabulous job at trying to get the surveys more widely distributed and getting what I thought was a pretty astonishing number of respondents to a survey in light of what surveys usually yield. I read the parent comments with particular care. Christina has said, watch for outliers. She's got a lot more experience than most of us do in data analysis. And as I read the comments and read them over and over again, it struck me that an issue that Jasmine has also focused on, that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the current climate is in Marin City and specifically at Bayside. I think fear is a really normal reaction for people to have when they're confronting change. But some of the comments in the survey really seem to be coming from a place of hostility towards Bayside and towards Marin City. And some of them were pretty bold in the expressions of hostility towards Bayside and towards Marin City. I'm hoping that the hostility was born out of a lack of familiarity with today's Bayside and today's Marin City, because it was alarming. Comments from those with reservations about unification followed three main themes. Number one, and this was explicitly stated, Bayside largely consists of students who are underachieving disciplinary problems, and these students would be disruptive to combine into the Willow Creek student body. Number two, the parents at Bayside are largely absent, and this was a strong theme. The parents at Bayside are largely absent from any involvement or interest in their children, and thus the children at Bayside are not motivated to do well at school and would be inappropriate to put into the Willow Creek student body. Number three, Willow Creek has a track record at successfully managing a diverse school, and so the district should, I'm paraphrasing here if you'll forgive me, move over and let Willow Creek take it from here. All the kids would be better off under Willow Creek management. The more I thought about this, the more I thought maybe the skeptics are responding to decades-old press reports of the damage the crack cocaine epidemic did and mass incarceration did to traditional African American communities across the country. At any rate, they paint a picture that is just so far from the reality here today that I wanted to sort of go through and point by point think about whether we can encourage everyone to listen to David Fernand's reports at the school board meetings, the principal of Bayside MLK. Go to the school board meetings. If you hear these kinds of misconceptions expressed in Sausalito about Bayside, encourage the people that you're talking to come to the school board meetings and listen to the reports that David Fernand is giving on the just astonishing improvements that are taking place at Bayside over the course of the last couple of years. Improvements in the testings at this level, at this rate, are astonishing. I think everyone would be encouraged if they could hear and see those results. I also think we should possibly encourage as many people as we can to come to any event at Bayside that the parents are in attendance. While acknowledging that many do not have the leisure to devote large amounts of time to school volunteerism, you'll meet a group of people that more loving, more involved, more concerned about their children's well-being you won't meet anywhere. And there's this mythology that the parents are unconcerned with their children's well-being that needs to be confronted. Number 3, I would remind all of us that the state dashboard shows that minority students at Bayside are largely outperforming the minority students at Willow Creek. And so we might examine the assumption that Willow Creek knows better how to manage a school, how to best manage a diverse school. We've all got something to contribute to the suggestions of what is an environment in which children who have been underprivileged are going to thrive. I also just can't resist. I want to call out, give a shout out, Jasmine, who has been doing an amazing job at scheduling tours for parents at Willow Creek to come to Bayside, for parents at Bayside to go over to Willow Creek, to try to address break down the barriers that, the kinds of misconceptions that exist create. So while my comments are largely about the difficulties of the barriers, Jasmine has been, doing something about it, and I think it's an example. We can all look for other examples of ways to, dispel some of these misconceptions. They're an impediment to unification at any rate. Sorry, I was lengthy, but there you go.
There may be others who would like to share your own reflections about the meeting.
I wanted to share a reflection to Jamie's comment as a Bayside parent. Just a couple of examples. I mean, I couldn't agree more with what she's saying. On back to school night earlier this year, I mean, this room that we're in right now was full of parents. And then we all dispersed and went into our kids' classrooms, and those were all full, representing the size of each classroom. And in our classroom, the kindergarten classroom, multiple parents asked about homework. What homework are you going to give our kids? We want to know more about homework. We want to, support them doing homework. To the point where the teacher kind of had to be like, what we really want everyone to do is just read. We're not gonna overwhelm our kindergartners with homework. I just thought I'd bring that up as an example of, everybody at this school really cares that their kid does well. For those folks who weren't at the school's Martin Luther King celebration, again, this room was packed to the gills with parents, aunts and uncles, grandparents, and if you weren't impressed by second graders learning about voter suppression, then I think you have really high academic standards. So I just want to offer a parent perspective that nobody cares more than this community. There's parents on field trips. There's a lot of parents' involvement. And I would pose the question, how are we making parents feel comfortable, parents of color feel comfortable at meetings like this, at meetings like last night? Are those spaces where they really truly feel invited and welcomed? I really question that, because they're here for their kids' events.
So I'm so happy you mentioned the comments because, just from a personal perspective, I, back in December, came over here to meet with Atoko, and I got here early, so was able to experience 30 minutes just sitting on the bench in the upstairs outside the office. And I just remember even bringing my own anxiety to coming. It definitely lowered it just by experiencing Bayside today. And I spent, a couple years ago, a huge amount of time working with the kitchen team, bringing the healthy food program, working collaboratively with the teachers and the kitchen crew to bring it to Willow Creek. So I knew what Bayside, how it ran just a few years ago. And just to experience it today, that's when the light bulb came on to me, that it has progressed significantly more than I even imagined coming and hearing what the progress is at the board meetings. And so to me, it was a huge amount of hope to send that idea about doing these tours where parents and community members at Bayside could experience Willow Creek, as well as Willow Creek parents could experience Bayside. My hope was that if we walk through each other's worlds a little more, a lot of these issues and barriers will start crumbling down a lot easier. And so I shot an email to Atoko and to Emily Cox, principal at Willow Creek, and David Fanan, principal here at Bayside. And the hope I want to share with you is within about 4 hours, everybody, and Kurt, president of Willow Creek Board, came on board to support the tours. So just an idea can manifest into a reality. We had tours last week where we brought parents from Willow Creek over, and I cannot tell you how excited they were to leave, how much they realized the school has significantly changed compared to the narrative out there, and how compassionate they were to say, what can we do to make sure that the programs and the support don't go away for these kids. I mean, there was a little girl coming out of first grade, it was kindergarten or first grade class, that while we were in there, we were all looking at the work that the kids were working on, and as she came outside in the line, she was trying to get David's attention and said, and we were listening to what she was saying, and she said, I just want to know, how come they didn't come over and see my work? Can they come over and see my work? And David, who had just told us that how wonderful it will be when we unify, because there will be more parents that can come in and help with differentiated learning for all the students and participate. And it's just such an opportunity if we can encourage not only parents, but teachers and board members to really walk through one another's worlds as it is today, and mayors and so forth. I cannot tell you that hour and a half that you spend at each other's schools will bring this community together. So I highly encourage that.
Thanks. When Jamie was recapping kind of some of the themes from the surveys, and I jotted it down, this perception that the school is grossly underperforming and the children are underachieving and have discipline problems, and there was fear that how could that group of kids successfully integrate with the children at Willow Creek. And that would have been true 3 years ago. When in the fall of 2016, that was true. The kids here were going to high school 3 years behind. And that was part of the reason probably the main reason that the Attorney General ended up investigating. And luckily, some stability is so important in the life of a child, and especially in the life of children that maybe have difficulties in their lives otherwise. I mean, it's a compounding thing. You know, the more difficulties you have, the more you need stability and consistent, caring people that you can count on. And this school was decimated. There was just a constant revolving door of teachers and staff and programs being cut left and right, and the kids don't respond well to that kind of abuse. They just don't. But luckily, people started to insist we have to deficit spend until there's more money, and we've got to start getting these kids what they need. And that was the beginning of stability coming back and true care and meeting the strengths and needs of these kids, meeting these kids specifically as they're needed. And I was thinking today, and I brought this quote, that there's a theory called the tricky mix theory. And I've worked in child development for years, and I just want to read it. It says, successful learning always involves what we term a tricky mix of multiple positive and converging cognitive, communicative, social, emotional, and self-esteem factors. It's tricky. It's tricky to get it right. And especially when you have we've created a situation of extreme deficit. And, you know, when the two boards said we want a resolution to explore a unified school, I thought, great, but are these kids ready? You know, there's been a lot of work, but are they up to the par to successfully integrate with the kids at Willow Creek who have had great stability and love and care? It's so impressive how much the teachers, the parents, the staff love that school and care so much for the kids, and the kids they know they're loved and cared for. And the beautiful thing is that's arrived here, is what everybody's saying. I came on Friday to the assembly because there was going to be a performance, Performing Stars. The children were doing their performance at the Tuskegee Airmen. I didn't know what else I'd see, but what I saw was that the teachers were up on the stage with the principal, and children were being acknowledged. And it was so joyous and so beautiful, calling kids up saying, you know, I'm the third grade teacher, and I want to acknowledge Jaylene. I'm making that name up, I don't know. She always has a smile on her face. She is so kind to her classmates, and she's always asking how she can help, and she's really diligent about doing her work. And I want to acknowledge her today. And then Jaylene comes up, and she's grinning ear to ear, and she gets a certificate. And I happened to see some kids as they were being called, and just the thrill, the smile to be acknowledged. And I just want to come back to this self-esteem factor and how kids feel about themselves gives them what they need to face challenges and to grow. And I'm going to say one more thing, and I know can I? Okay, thank you. We had a unification meeting here last night, and I got in a conversation with one father who, I just want to say I was kind of drawn to him because he had such kind eyes. And, you know, just somebody I wanted to talk to. And we were talking about, you know, the money difference that we're hearing a lot about this. How much money per student does Bayside get compared to Willow Creek. And it's a huge topic right now. And I'm not going to, anyway, this father said, you know, Willow Creek's been really run like a tight ship, and they really manage their money well, and the money really needs to be managed well here. And you know, there's so much money going into services for children here. It's crazy how much. And, you know, are they really spending their money right? And I said, you know, after the decimation here, there's been a lot of very targeted work to meet these kids' strengths and needs. They have a lot of, you know, 3 years behind. That's a lot of catch up to do. And it's been happening, you know, that the kids are doing so much better. And this dad said, well, you know, yeah, but when you have a kid over here who's 3 years behind and he has a difficult life, and then you've got 10 kids over here who are doing pretty good, and you have to make decisions with the money you have, and if you give it to this one over here, you might make his life a little less miserable. But if you give it to these 10, they could excel. Yeah, I'll wrap it up. I think there's enough money to do it all. And I know hundreds of thousands is being spent on lawsuits, and that just scares me because we just need to take care of them all. We have an incredible opportunity here to take care of all the kids exquisitely well, and I hope we do it, and we just have to do that.
I thank all of you for sharing your thoughts. In communities like this, in places where people have different points of views about very important things in life, then there is truth in each point of view. And not that each point of view in its own substance is right, but for the holder of that set of ideas, there is truth in that reality. And so the collective wisdom here has to figure out how to jointly, no matter what the ultimate decisions are made with the Attorney General or with the boards, to figure out how to ultimately lift up those truths and connect people and ideas and circumstance in a way that allows us to find common ground and move forward together. And so what you heard today is a set of views that are truth. There are probably other people here that time doesn't permit who also have a truth and a story to be told. And so the deal here is to create spaces for all of those voices. And as those voices, are lifted up, and we provide the opportunity for the various communities to connect, reflect together, then out of that work, and I've said that it's almost at every meeting, I do think the collective wisdom will allow us to discover a way forward, and through that discovery, provide a world-class education for every child. Yeah. And in the course of being world-class, share that story and change education around the country. I really, really believe that. Everybody recognize that there are multiple truths, and that those truths have to be heard and acknowledged and addressed as we go forward together.
Thank you, Dr. Elmo. And just to remind everybody that the base camp is open to everybody, and that's a good way to keep the conversation going, or put your thoughts or your reflections, your diverse truths into the mix, and to make sure that those things are continuously heard and considered. Caps lock got me.
Create space now. If there are questions for clarifications, ask them as he goes. If there are questions for discussion, we'll go into small groups.
Thank you, Dr. Elmo. And so I just want to say a word about what's before you, what's been printed, what you'll have access to. Much of the work that we've covered in other DAG meetings is kind of a preamble to this. So all the survey data, all of the information around the desegregation settlement and the judgment, and the work that we've done on community engagement, and it's all in this plan, but I'm not going to spend the time today because many of you have come to all these meetings and know it, but I will post a digital version on the website, and then you'll have access to the whole comprehensive document. But I wanted to spend time today focusing really closely on, and remember, this is just a first draft. We're giving it to you all first so that I can get your input and make updates even before I give it to the Board of Trustees next week. And I want folks to stay very grounded in the idea that this is an iterative process. This may change, it may develop. The Attorney General is going to give us feedback as well, and so there may be things from the Attorney General that come back that make us update or change what you see before you. I've been waffling between using the word rough or first draft. I'm going to use the word first and not rough, but if there's any roughness in it, don't hesitate to point that out either. There's a significant amount of collective community work that has gone into this, as well as some sleepless nights. So if there's a typo or two in there, I'll just ask for your grace on that. That's that document, yeah. So I'm going to go through it a little bit, and then we'll break you up into groups as we've done before and let you kind of interrogate it and generate questions and recommendations. You're good, man. You're fine. So the section 6, which, just to point out, is page 128, which is why I didn't print pages 1 through 127 for you all, especially since most of you have seen them, lays out the elements that are required by the Attorney General for this comprehensive education plan. A mission and a vision statement, a program and a curriculum designed to attract students from throughout the district of all backgrounds, how to incorporate community resources, how to ensure that 7th and 8th grade students receive instruction from single subject credentialed teachers in English, math, and science, long-term funding, long-term teacher retention and recruitment, long-term program leadership, positive interaction amongst student groups, discipline policies that encourage community building and communication that are equitable, unambiguous, and limit exclusionary discipline, community and family engagement, program marketing, feasibility costs of transportation that adequately serve all kids from throughout the district who attend district-operated schools, out-of-district enrollment and inter-district attendance agreements, professional learning for teachers, staff, and administrators on working with diverse classrooms and encouraging positive intergroup interactions, physical facilities, including a description of options for enrollment capacity, eligibility of the program for special funding, including grants. So what you have before you is actually laid out exactly according to these elements. And I'm going to invite you to point out also where it might need more work or more clarification or deeper explanation. I think physical facilities is one of those, to be even before I get there. But whatever calls your attention, please, we need your feedback for the continued development and the bettering of this plan. So it starts with a vision. World-class facilities and educational programs that serve as a model of educational equity, excellence, and integration, and are the top choice for all families in the 94965. Our schools will forge a strong community of global citizens who find strength in diversity, affirm and value difference, and who are prepared for college, career, and a life which empowers all people to overcome systemic barriers and create social and climate justice. A mission. In order to achieve outcomes for all students, especially for Black, Latina, English language learners, and students with any learning differences that meet and exceed outcomes in the highest performing schools, we will collaborate with our community to create a pre-K through 8th grade dual language science, technology, arts, and research community school that provides a trauma-informed, culturally and linguistically sustaining, top-tier academic, social, and emotional curriculum that attracts and retains highly qualified staff who reflect the diverse identity of our community, and that ensures a safe and inclusive climate for all. The educational program designed to achieve our mission and vision rests on 3 key foundations. A pre-K program for children aged 2 to 5. You might wonder, don't 5-year-olds start in kindergarten? It actually depends when you turn 5. If you turn 5 after December the 2nd, in between September the 2nd and December the 2nd of a given school year, you actually are required to attend transitional kindergarten. If you turn 5 after December the 2nd, you have to wait until the following school year. And so a focus on pre-K, which I'll get into in a minute, I believe is a really important component of this program.
I just wanted to raise a kind of general point. I feel very much an outsider to this process, but I'd like to point out that what I'm hearing from you in terms of mission and vision seems to be unequivocally shared by all the people in this room. There are obviously people in the community, however, who don't feel this way. And I'm just wondering, how are we going to deal with that when the presentation is made so that it is apparent that those concerns were at least taken into account in reaching our bottom line proposals.
Let me allow you to answer
Thank you.
that question, but then once again, at this point, let's let him get through the presentation. If you have questions for clarification, then please ask them. But the substantive questions about content and intent, we'll take up in small groups and then in the full group. But would you?
I'll do my best. A lot of that feedback is actually in the page 1 through 127, right? I didn't, it's not omitted. I think that as an educational leader, I have a general rule, which is it's impossible to please 100% of the people, right? But if we can please a majority of the people, then we're doing something good and right and true and effective. When we try to please everybody, we can't. And so it's not that those views and those truths aren't important. They're here. I believe they're reflected in the data. I would like this to be an appealing program for all 100% of the people. But there may be a percentage of the community that it isn't appealing to. And it's not to say that we can't continue to work with those people and try to refine this. That's why we're here going through this process. So that's my short answer. So along with the pre-K program for kids aged 2 to 5, it's the K through 8 dual language Spanish, science, technology, art, and research community school program, along with what we're calling the People's Empowerment Arts and Community Engagement after school program. So I'm going to start using acronyms just so that I can get through this. STAR, peace, education is an acronym heavy field, forgive me. So preschool, what does preschool look like? What does that even mean? In collaboration with an array of community partners that are currently delivering preschool programming in our community, we would like to develop a district administered preschool program that has at least one classroom, if not more. There are currently 3 main preschool programs that serve the majority of preschool students eligible for state and federal funding in the 94965. Those are the Learning Center, Head Start. Both of those programs are administered by Community Action Marin, and then another program administered by Marin Horizon Community School. These 3 programs currently serve different members of our school community. We know that there are at least 150 families living within our enrollment boundaries with children between the age of 0 and 3 who are not eligible to receive subsidized child development services from the providers listed above, and who either for financial reasons or due to limited space in private child care are experiencing challenges in finding care for their kids. And so our vision is actually to partner with all 3 of these programs to allow for the expansion of available childcare and increased eligibility for families who don't currently qualify. And for several outcomes that we believe will support the realization of our mission and vision. 1, to attract families from all geographic regions in our community into district programs. 2, to stabilize and increase enrollment in the KA and Peace After School program. To engage in the development and alignment of a pre-K through 3rd grade data system and longitudinal tracking of student achievement. I'll get into why I believe some of these things are so important as I go on. Alignment of schedules and calendars between program partners. Many of you actually are probably acutely aware of how unaligned calendars, programs, and schedules currently are in our community. Increased enrichment and food service quality for pre-K students, increased continuity and access to year-round programming for the community, teacher collaboration, curriculum development, and vertical alignment pre-K through 3rd grade. Right now our programs are totally disconnected. Continuity of special education services for our most vulnerable students. Increased community engagement, parent leadership capacity development, the development of program quality indicators, and the increased school readiness of our most vulnerable students. So, how, why the attraction of new families and the stabilization of enrollment? As you'll see throughout this plan, not only do we have a tremendous amount of community energy around doing this work, a mandate from the Attorney General, but we also happen to be if you believe that the word luck means preparation plus opportunity, then we're in actually a very unique situation to leverage many things that are happening in the overall climate of our state, if not currently our nation. And that first of which is SB 75, which made families eligible for full-day pre-K programs without meeting the requirements relating to the need for child care services if all of the families meeting those requirements in a school district have been enrolled. I cannot emphasize enough how important this can be in the 94965. This bill authorizes providers operating a state preschool program within the attendance boundary of a public school where at least 80% of enrolled pupils are eligible for free or reduced price meals to enroll 4-year-old children meeting specified priorities. The bill authorizes any remaining slots to be open for enrollment to any other families not otherwise eligible as provided. So there's a slew of families in our community that aren't eligible for these programs that if we're able to develop a program like this, we could provide low to no cost childcare for. Oftentimes those eligibilities are related to household incomes above allowable limits. Ensuring that these families have access to high quality pre-K programming that is currently unavailable to them provides the opportunity to build relationships with families that traditionally have not had a relationship with the district or don't have any relationship with the district, and will allow for them to build a positive association with our district, get to know our staff, and provide an opportunity for diverse students and families to build relationships with each other earlier in their educational journey. Earlier and longer term exposure to district personnel, programs, curriculum, and in particular to the resources and events provided by our community school increases the likelihood that families will elect to remain in our K-8 program when the time arrives for them to make that decision. Over time, a longer-term positive association with district personnel, programs, and curriculum will lead to increased enrollment in our program and, in turn, the Peace After School program from all geographic regions, income levels, and racial backgrounds in our community. Us playing a coordination role for all 3 pre-K programs and implementing at least one district-administered classroom will allow for us to develop a data dashboard that provides for the alignment of the assessments used by our pre-K partners. Currently, they use 2 different assessment measures. It doesn't map onto the formative assessment we use for kindergarten. So we've got all this data and none of it talks to each other. None of it's aligned. We can't really use it to identify gaps in early education and how that manifests once kids get into our K-8 programs. Particularly, it doesn't map on to the MAP assessment that we use as an additional benchmark. Since the California Assessment of Student Performance and Progress, or CASP, is only administered in 3rd through 8th grade, we have a huge gap. As a matter of fact, we know from educational research that that gap starts in preschool. And so aligning what we're doing pre-K through 3 could have a tremendous impact on the readiness of all of our families for school and later achievement. This type of longitudinal data tracking will allow us to identify students who are making the academic progress necessary for them to meet or exceed grade level expectations, as well as exactly the type of targeted interventions and skill development that each student might need to catch up to that level, as well as to measure the efficacy of different interventions and programs over time. It's really hard for us right now with the patchwork of programs and the lack of alignment and data measurement to see actually what's having a really big impact in the lower grades. This would give us an opportunity to do that and really make some informed decisions as a community about programs, about interventions, and things that really make a big impact, so that by the time kids reach 3rd grade, they're not already a year behind or 2 years behind. We can do earlier intervention and make sure that kids are on grade level when they're coming into kindergarten. I'm here to tell you educational research isn't clear on a lot of things, but it's clear on that point. When you are ready for school in kindergarten, you are very likely to continue to do very well in school. When you are not, the likelihood of your later success is greatly diminished. And so that's really the driving idea behind this data dashboard and all of this work in pre-K. Calendar and programmatic alignment. Why is that important? Currently, each different K program and the school program have different schedules. They have different hours, they have different lunch times, they have different recess, right? And so not only does this make coordination of certain kinds of services and delivery of certain kinds of services difficult, it makes a collaboration between the teaching staff almost impossible. Teachers have limited time to collaborate. We need to make sure they have the same time available in their day to talk to each other, to achieve this kind of alignment. The alignment of calendars to support collaboration will also allow for curriculum and assessment development and cycles of continuous improvement to happen beginning in preschool. Calendar alignment, for those of you that have more than one kid, is also really important, right? When our calendars are not aligned in between pre-K and elementary and high school, you can end up with a situation where you have kids that need to be at 3 different places at about the same time, or you can have a morning drop-off that takes you an hour and a half, or you can have conflicting vacation schedules. There are just a ton of benefits for us being able to line not only daily schedules, but year-long calendars. Not only benefits for our kids, but benefits to local business, benefits to families. There's a tremendous amount of good things that could come from a calendar alignment. The other thing that's probably most important in this regard in the age of 2 to 5 is making sure that families have year-round access to childcare. Currently, our families have to choose between programs to ensure continuity of childcare. it's currently negatively impacting enrollment in district TK and kindergarten programs. So entering into this partnership will allow for a coordinated community-wide plan that is supportive of co-enrollment and ensures our families are not having to make difficult choices about program allegiance simply to ensure the care they need for their children. And that is the current reality in our community, not for everybody, but for a significant number of people.
Dr. Toko, you're being really thorough and clear. I'm going to remind you of your time crunch.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So I'll try to go more 10,000 foot and a little faster, and you all can read what I wrote. Enrichment in food service. We are really happy that we've been able to expand and provide food service to the Marin Horizon Community School program. And we provide art and music and PE to the Head Start program that's on our campus, but we would like to see all of the pre-K programs be able to access that. We believe nutrition and enrichment is important beginning at 2. That's part of that readiness that I talked about. I talked a little bit about collaboration, curriculum, and vertical alignment, but in particular, the scheduling piece, the daily scheduling piece is important so that we can form a professional learning community for our pre-K staff, that they can work together, that they can collaborate, they can design units of study and lessons and formative and summative assessments. This would allow a pre-K through kindergarten PLC of multiple teachers to meet at least once a week and engage in a cycle of inquiry process. That's laid out how they do that here. But once standards and assessments are identified that our kids are behind on, we can develop really targeted instruction and make sure that they're not. It would allow for peer observation. Teachers learn best from other teachers. Right now, the way our programs are aligned, they never get a chance to see each other teach. We could have some absolutely brilliant folks, and nobody knows. The other teachers here can't benefit from those instructional practices. This would allow for a chance to do that. And furthermore, and most importantly, it would allow for a vertical alignment and connection to the 1st through 3rd grade professional learning community, so that the experiences, the curriculum, the assessments, the projects that little kids do, they feed into what happens 1st through 3rd grade, and then that can feed into what happens 3rd through 8th. Why do I call out special education? I call out special education because as a school district, we're required to provide special education services to preschool students until you're age eligible to enroll in a district program. And then if you choose not to, we are no longer required to provide special education services. And so what that means for some kids and families is when that baby's old enough to enter TK, and they need speech and language services, for instance, if they choose to stay in preschool, for instance, because they need year-round childcare, and TK doesn't offer that, it can mean an interruption in their special education services. By creating a district class, we could ensure that that never happens to a kid in our community. I don't think it should happen, but it does. That's why this is important to me. We can really create a program that bridges and fills all these holes. I think it has a positive impact on community engagement and parent leadership as well. When we can plug families in beginning at 2 years of age to our community school program and the services and the parent engagement team, we will see more robust participation in things like LCAP committees and parent school alliances and district English language advisory committees. Why? Because you'll be a part of the process and you'll know the people. It won't be something you start learning the first day of kindergarten or the first day that you decide to enroll in our school. You will have had an opportunity to access parent education classes or other social services that the community school model offers that your family might need from the beginning. Much like data, there's no agreement in our community about program quality in pre-kinder. There's no agreement about what this term we throw around, school readiness, what that even means. This would allow us to align that in our community in a very profound way, build consensus around that, and build towards it. So, how might we develop such a program? From now until June 2020, we will finish our evaluation of funding sources and finalize the details of the program and partnership. I'm happy to say that I recently got every pre-K provider, not only in our community, but in our county in the same room. And they told me it was the first time any of them had ever been to a meeting like that. Marin Promise Partnership has agreed to come in and play a coordination role, so I don't have to do this all by myself. The folks at Marin Community Foundation, we're going to be reapplying for a pre-K through 3 grants, which we've been awarded successfully in the past to support the development of this program. They're in the room as well. So I think we have some really exciting opportunities ahead of us in terms of developing this program. But there's still some details to be worked out, and we need to work them out no later than July 1st, 2020. I know it looks like, and we would use that PK through 3 grant as a startup. I know it looks like Prop 13 maybe isn't going to pass, so that would take this off the table, but it's not totally dead yet. They're still counting ballots. And as you'll see later in this program, there's other sources available for preschool program and facilities development in the state, even if this does go down to a defeat. $75 million in the governor's proposed budget for preschool program and facilities development to provide funding to construct modified preschool facilities to serve students with exceptional needs. There's that intersection of special education and preschool again. Out of $900 million in the governor's budget for teacher education, development, and retention. $300 million in opportunity grants for the state's lowest performing schools and districts. So there are some other fund sources available for us to tap. So K-8 Dual Language Star Community School will consist of a dual language Spanish program development, science, technology, art, and research, and I'd invite you to just substitute in your mind project-based learning for the word research. Continue the development of our community school program, the career and college counseling program, teacher color pipeline, and a plan to make sure that we have single subject credentialed teachers. Often people jump into dual language program development. That is not my recommendation here. It would be slow, it would be steady. The very first pre-K kindergarten piece of this, and then an opportunity to offer Spanish world language would happen in the school year after next. And we would add a grade level every year. So there's a cohort of kids that have been in a dual language program that can move up together until we build it all the way up through 8th grade. The idea would be that we actually have sufficient native Spanish speakers in our community already to do this kind of program. These things don't work when you don't have native Spanish speakers, but we have about 30%, and that's right at the threshold that is looked at for a successful dual language program, right? So our English-speaking kids need fluent Spanish-speaking models, just like our fluent Spanish speakers need fluent English-speaking models for everybody to produce and grow together. One of the other things that I think is really important about this is often when kids graduate from our district, it's a significant barrier to college readiness for them to pass the foreign language A through G requirements in high school, particularly at TAM, but in high schools across our county. I think this program would, over time, begin to deliver graduates who might even be able to test out of that requirement freshman year and learn a second language. There's some other interesting research around flexibility and learning and openness and empathy for folks that know more than one language. The STAR program would have a school-wide science focus on climate justice, restorative earth sciences, environmental education, wildlife and land conservation, and would really leverage access to our physical proximity to the Marin City Pond and the waterfront, as well as to the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, Nature Bridge, programs like Call of the Sea. The technology focus would include computer science, virtual reality, coding, robotics, animation, and other STEM-focused subjects that you see here. One important thing about the way we're using tech is that technical arts also include building trades, construction, education, child development, family services. The arts focus is based on a dynamic culturally relevant arts program, really aligned to the VAPA framework, K through 12, and with a focus on dance, media arts, music, theater, and visual arts, arts integration. The community school really looks at how to integrate partnerships and support family engagement. We've done a significant amount of development this year. You can see that all laid out here, different kind of programs, different kind of events. But we would like to continue that. Here you see a vision for launching even more programs, something called the Marin City Youth Mentor Program and the Vision Project. Here you see a layout of all of our partnerships. If you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of need, these partnerships are actually laid out according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So on the purple realm, you see access to food, healthcare, shelter, clothing, basic needs. On the green section, you see partnerships that we already have that are working in the realm of safety and community belonging. And then as you move up into the top tiers, you have self-esteem and self-actualization. So you can take a deep dive into that. It's also based on Joyce Epstein's research to the 6 keys of parent involvement: parenting, communicating, volunteering, learning at home, decision-making, and collaborating with the community. We are proposing to develop a family engagement network, not only for our schools, but that can serve as a model throughout the county. That family engagement network would look at providing technical assistance for LCAP, coaching and professional development around community and family engagement, and families and school and community partnerships. It really is about making connections, creating systems and structures, and creating culturally relevant and responsive services to district and schools. It's based on the work also of Karen Mapp at Harvard, which is a dual capacity development framework. Most folks that work in community engagement get no training. They're just good community people that we've found ways to bring into schools. This actually lays out a dedicated pathway for training those folks on the most current research in community and family engagement and building their capacity, at the same time offering a parent university learning pathway for the capacity development of parents. You'll see it is the same training once it gets to the top tier, but is a little differentiated in the bottom 2 tiers. We have been working jointly with a lot of community partners to provide a college and career counseling program to administer the scholarship that we're mandated to give, as well as create a teacher of color pipeline. You can see some goals there. I'm happy to say that both the TAM superintendent and the Mill Valley superintendent have agreed to be a part of this and place teachers of color in the community, as well as teachers of color here in our district. You can see some goals here. You can see a framework. What's most exciting about this is that this creates a pathway to either work in pre-K or to get a teaching credential for the beneficiaries and special beneficiaries named in the settlement agreement. So hopefully 6 to 8 years from now, we see kids from our school coming back here as teachers that have been supported all the way along the journey to getting a teaching credential. But it also provides an on-ramp for any member of our community that's currently working in a school, or any member of our community that currently has a BA that wants to become a teacher. All of these credential partners have agreed to take candidates from our community to do this, to expand the pool of folks. And it also covers immediate placement. So all 4 of these credentialing partners, UC Berkeley, Dominican College, University of San Francisco, and Cal State Teach, which is a statewide teacher credentialing program, will begin placing candidates in our programs as early as this fall. I won't belabor the point about curriculum collaboration and vertical alignment. It's the same idea in pre-K, but taking place K through 8. This is how I have transformed schools successfully in my career. It's based on a cycle of continuous improvement and improvement science, and is the most proven way of creating high academic outcomes in schools across the country. This also lays out a plan for how we will increase access to single subject credentialed teachers. I'm very proud to say that the folks from Compass and College of Marin who have agreed to administer our college and career counseling program are working with us to provide access for College of Marin professors to provide math and science instruction to our students as beginning next year, to build a bridge to either a shared position for single subject math and science teachers with Tantle High or Mill Valley Middle School, or the outright hiring of a single subject credentialed science and math teacher. Next year we only have 13 7th and 8th graders, so we'd only require one section of science and one section of math, and so that's why we're not looking at bringing in those teachers for next year, because it's hard to find somebody to teach one section a day. And there may be some other things that we can do to remedy that situation sooner rather than later that have yet to make it into this plan. So the Peace After School program. This has 12 components: safe and a supportive environment. This will actually bring our after school programming in-house instead of partnering with Boys and Girls Club or another community provider. It'll allow us to align our school culture and climate programs, our positive behavior expectations, the arts integration work that we're doing between the regular day and after school. Active and engaged learning. We'll continue with Smarty Ants and some of the academic interventions that we have during the regular day all through after school. But it greatly allows us to expand athletics and arts enrichment. So we'll be partnering with an organization called the People's Conservatory and other groups like Performing Stars that are already doing work with us to provide music, dance, theater, hip-hop ed, digital media filmmaking, beat making, visual art, and the Peace program will offer athletics, intramural sports on a rotating basis throughout the year. It's a really big program expansion and offering. The alignment with the instructional day in terms of school culture and climate, academic interventions, and PE programming will also extend and reinforce educational literacy and enrichment. And so the idea is actually to immediately expand on the arts integration plan that was adopted a couple years ago. This was a 5-year plan, but to actually build it backwards from the after-school program. And so we're really looking at accelerating our arts integration program this way, and over the next 3 years building it into the regular day. We'll provide for more youth voice and youth leadership. This is all about monitoring. We'd like to create a peer conflicts mediator program called Junior Peacekeepers. That will support, along with staff, a positive and healthy, safe after-school environment. Continuing with Conscious Kitchen for healthy snacks and behaviors, and relaunching the Kitchen Ambassador program and the Iron Chef program and after school. We tremendously expand diversity, access, and equity. The other thing about this that's really exciting is it'll allow us to hire, supervise, and evaluate the staff. And so it'll give us a much higher accountability for after-school programming and after-school staff that we currently don't have. Here you can see a mock of what the program might look like, some costs. There's a vision for the after-school program that aligns with the overall vision in this plan, but maybe could use some more alignment with your feedback. Lays out what everybody's going to do, talks about the different collaborative partnerships with Conscious Kitchen, the Marin City Community Services District, Bridge the Gap College Prep, the Marin City Library, And again, you'll hear me talk a lot about continuous cycles of improvement. There's a reason. That's how we make schools better. And if we do it in pre-K, and we do it in the regular day, and we do it in after school, we will see some greatly improved programs and outcomes. Here's an org chart for the program. The other thing that this does is it allows all the after-school programming folks to report directly to the principal, be under the supervision of the principal, something that our current configuration does not allow. Program schedule. Talks about how financing and accounting and attendance tracking will go, and sustainability. So I'm happy to say we're able to do all this without actually too much increasing the current costs of after-school programming. How, you may wonder. We're going to use the ACES grant that we get for after-school programming to pay for a large chunk of this, and we have a generous commitment of a donation from the Shakur Foundation for $25,000 to support this program, and we're still working with our district foundation Arts Plus to see if there is any other possibility of support in that regard. And so I would not anticipate too large of an increase, and this may even be cost neutral. It'll save us some money to do our own program. Long-term program leadership. We would like to write into the PK through 3 grant, and in partnership with Marin Promise, create a pre-K coordinator position. If everything goes well, we'll at least have a second year of a superintendent and CVO next year, and our principal will be in his 4th year, and our community school manager will be in his 2nd year. By bringing the director of the after-school program in-house and making it a district position on a director level, that will also secure long-term program leadership. A lot of the culture and climate recommendations you've already seen, but they're fleshed out here. Continued use of PBIS, continued use of restorative justice, developing multi-tiered systems of support, creating a check-in, check-out system for next year, continuing with our coordination of services team, and creating a site equity action team. Some other program highlights. We're already engaging in the development of program marketing, creating public service announcements to market the program. You see the cost there. You see recommendations that should look familiar around transportation. I got a little formatting a little off here, I apologize. This is our inter-district and out-of-district policy. We are in the process of developing a new inter-district transfer agreement with Mill Valley that's not based on geography, that would allow for open enrollment in transitional kindergarten and middle school, and would allow on a case-by-case basis for Sausalito Marin City families currently attending Mill Valley schools to stay, but not for any new families. Professional learning for the upcoming school year. We continue with trauma-informed practices provided by Seneca, mindfulness provided by Mindful Schools, readers and writer workshop with Lucy Calkins, courageous conversations about race and equity, and new professional learning for next year, arts integration and culturally and linguistically sustaining pedagogies by the Center for Culturally Responsive Teaching and Learning and Dr. Sharaki Holly. We launched an instructional leadership team this year that will be responsible for planning those cycles of continuous improvement that I talked about. We built 3 full days into the calendar to support, give them the time and space to do that collaboration and curriculum development. This talks about facilities development to support the STAR program, the development of a STEAM lab, development of pre-K facilities, development of performing arts spaces, music recording studio, dance rehearsal space, gym, district office, board of trustees chambers, housing for staff, M&O warehouse, and the development of a solar array EV charging station with underground backup batteries so that we can keep the lights on both of our campuses when PG&E decides our community shouldn't have any power. Some more details there you'll find in your packet. Some financing options for all of these things. Again, keep in mind, if Prop 39 doesn't pass, we'll be looking at the top portion of what you see here. If it does pass, we'll have an opportunity to look at the bottom. And maybe a few days from now, I'll either emphasize that or take it out of the plan. You see a funding timeline and a lot of tables there around multi-year projections. I do want to point out that any expenditures that are not currently in our multi-year projection on this plan, the idea is that we'll go after grants to fund them. We're not anticipating new or expanded sources of revenue in this plan. Although that's also perhaps a possibility. Here's again a listing of all the grants that would be available to support the programs outlined in this comprehensive education plan, some of which I've talked about already. A few more are computer science and school nutrition. We're uniquely positioned with our Conscious Kitchen programs to go after these school nutrition grants. Probably both of our schools are, both Conscious Kitchen programs are really uniquely positioned to go after those funds. And so we have about a half an hour left, and we want to break you up to have some discussion. And I apologize for being long-winded. It's a lot. And I think it's clear to me at this point that we'll probably need another meeting to come back together for you all just to discuss and give recommendations. And so that would be my proposal, but I'm going to turn it back over to Omawali, and thanks for listening.
No, thank you. Just a thought, you probably are fully aware of this. In another life, I was a number of years back. But Dr. Cadet, our last meeting had, and I know you consider it, is if the entire community, the 2 school boards, the 2 city councils, the county board of education, the county board of supervisors, now went to the State Department of Education because it's been mandated by the Attorney General to take this action and to make a case to fund it all. That's the deal, y'all. And who can refuse Marin County and Sausalito anything? No, I'm exaggerating here, okay? But I think you get this. So that's point 1. So there are possibilities. The second point is, regardless of your thinking about unification and desegregation, one of the things is that in the agreements is that we have to assume goodwill. And so everybody here wants to create the best high-quality program that we can create, regardless of what you do with your personal choices about you, your family, your kids, etc. So we're here together to group think, to put our collective wisdom together to, create a world-class program for the young people. So thank you for the report. Thank you. Are there any general questions that need clarified in terms of what's reported, this content question, before we get into the small groups?
I have a question about the dual language. I forget how it's...
The dual language part of the mission, is that an immersion, or is it just meaning that you're going to have a Spanish class for 1 period a day for the kids, or is it trying to be kind of a dual immersion sort of program?
Good question. If you look at the details of the plan, it actually spells out how we would develop what you're calling dual immersion, what I would call dual language programming. It focuses on dual language instruction on certain subjects. And the development of a cohort each year and an expansion of a grade level each year.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to kind of find 3 or 4 people that you want to have a dive into this. You'll get a chance to read it, reflect on it, give feedback on it, and so we can't anticipate that you can do that today. But when you get in your small groups, there's 3 questions that we want you to consider. Yeah, what excites you about what's been presented based on what you know? What are your apprehensions about its feasibility, doability? And what would be if you get this far, the challenges of bringing the 2 schools together to pull this off? What excites you, what cautions, concerns, and what are the things that need to be addressed or attended to in order for the schools to come together and make this happen? So identify 3 or 4 people that you want to have this conversation with. We'll give about 20, 25 minutes in that conversation. We'll come back and we'll report out the main thoughts that people want to hear.
Things started to go numb in my extremities, so I said I better stand up. Yeah.
So are you hoping the assumption is that this comprehensive education is correct? Say that in fact on one of these pages it says that after the after-school program.
Hey, Wally, can you hear me?
It doesn't say the eventual unified school for all so I'm wondering, does this presume this? Does anybody know who the...
Wally, can you hear me?
Is it from the unified? Well, I know there were many reports
For those of you on Zoom, so I have lots of if we're going to do that,
Are you a parent or as a teacher? You're a teacher here?
So I was over there.
That's
And I'm also a president.
give the kids to us and we'll take care of it. It's like, how do you work with that attitude to then come to this with the experience of a principal of this guy who's really experienced and educated instead of not saying that the teachers over there aren't educated, but have this big picture. They're not. And so then we have the parents. Could be, yeah. Yeah. And so just stirring the pot. Yeah, we have those. Yeah. So how do the people and the parents who are used to calling the shots over there, like, what is their education plan? It clearly isn't as good as this one.
So I don't know how do you make that happen.
And so this.
Real back prior to
If we allow that to happen, if we, my worry, and it's not really brought about by this, it's just brought about by integrity work, just being what it's I'm really worried that as I look at, as I hear these different points of view, right? Oh my God, what possibly lose when you want one great school and stop being arguing over replicating everything into, it just doesn't make sense to have to de facto. It just don't have to. So how does that maintaining two schools recommended? It doesn't. You can't desegregate. You have two schools. Yeah. And by the way, in the meantime, there will have been all this attrition, and so the remaining conflict. With net, I mean, like I would think most, I know a number of, some of my teachers have younger, and so they have kids there, and one of them, Monica, well, but she said I cornered her the other day at a function. I said, okay, so let me just tell you what I think we need to right away, get this unification process going, because what you're saying is that, families with means just do something else. At which point you have you've lost your socioeconomic diversity. It's gone. So that's what this whole point is. The point is to really make a mixture of all kinds of kids from different kinds of backgrounds. But she said, we've been around since the beginning. We remember we didn't have, at Willow Creek, didn't have a lot. We had barely any teachers, no sports, no. So she said, we're not going anywhere. We remember when it was like, it'll get, funded down to a no, and then we'll just wait until there is a joint officer. So there are families like that who are just ready for whatever, but what they're worried about is that there's not enough movement on the unification process. And what they see is just the disagreement. They think it's an effort. They think it's an effort to get the show away. So that is a narrative. It's not based on fact. It's a narrative. It's a real. Yeah. So I think what we have to do has to happen very quickly, and it has to then in a year and a half, they will be one school, done. I don't know why the communication isn't happening. Maybe because, in fact, it hasn't agreed to this one. And there's this, yeah. They think they're doing it right. They think they're doing it right. They believe that their system is the system. And so nothing in here addresses that. That's what worries me about this, is that it doesn't take, even if some of their system isn't terrific, it doesn't seem to take that into account so that they feel like they're part of that. It's that.
We'll be back.
Who came on that? Yes. I know. But was that like 7 years ago or so that was when Milton came on. Yeah, that was the beginning. That's exactly.
Because back then, I just watched but I don't want to stay in that because I'm getting
Yes, right. Yes. Yeah. Because you have a board who is hiring the right people. Well, there was a real revolving door for she's been here a long time. And she was a classroom teacher. Too much interest by the parents over there that the narrative they're getting is damaging, and they need to.
So some of the
Yes, come and do there. Come and do that, yeah.
Yeah, well, when I was in third grade, they were talking about this is like what everyone wants to talk about. A really nice hotel room.
Very well.
No, it was great too.
Yeah, absolutely. Base of the which was over there, did that have a different, did that have, when I know everybody got kind of very hurtful thing. It didn't even lose students because they were students that just didn't follow. That there was a lot of flight from here when the defunding happened and there were teachers. Then they said, come on over, we'll take care of you.
Okay, if I can have your attention in 1 minute.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the programs. Oh, it's a great, yeah. Right, there is a Oh, boy, we have to be on that.
Okay, if I could have your attention. And of course, there is never enough time. But what we like to do is get feedback from each of you, not as a spokesperson for your group, but your own voice around these matters. And let's start with the question. If I could get everyone's attention, what excites you about the plan as you now understand it? Who'd like to begin? Yeah, please. And then because of the time, we will be moving very quickly through these questions.
I think what we're doing is unique in that it's something that others have tried to do before, create a really successful integrated school. But in this situation with the desegregation order, and it gives us, I'm very aware of it, gives us access to experts, top-notch experts in the specific parts of this that could be the most challenging. And that just thrills me. I think that adds to a lot of other things aligned that lead to making me think this could be tremendously successful. A lot of parents who want it, the money's here, and the small size. You know, I think it's a doable thing that helps it be done and done really well.
No, but thank you. Others, what excites you about the plan as you understand it? Yeah.
Okay, so we had four main things that excited us. So one was the range of the academics, that it really built on a lot of the areas that people are excited about and working on. We were excited on kind of like both ends of the spectrum as far as after school. Having a more integrated after school program really allows you to have a feeling of continuation of the school day. And you can tailor things more effectively to kids. And then kind of from after school to preschool, the pre-K program was essential so that kids are coming into kindergarten prepared and everybody's kind of prepared to learn, as we talked about earlier, because that's critical. And then the community school integration of services, and then the dual language at an early age.
Thank you. Anyone else want to share your thoughts? Yeah.
That's okay. I'll do it real quick because there were two in our group and one of us has left. I was talking to Tom Riley, who is the member of the Sausalito City Council, who's filling in for Jill Hoffman while she's doing her military service. And I think he was really, he said he loved the plan. He loved it. He thought it was ambitious. And he thinks that unification is the way to go for the district. He's very alarmed at the cuts to Willow Creek and the implications for Sausalito. He characterizes the funding constraints as short-term and hopes that a resolution can be arrived at to meet those short-term funding constraints at Willow Creek. But other than that, he loved the plan.
Thank you. Any other sharing about what excites you about the plan? Let's then go to question. Oh, you have. Oh, question two. Yeah, cautions or concerns? Yeah, please. Yes, absolutely.
I just am really hoping, and I haven't seen it in here and I haven't been able to look at the full document, but just that there's a truth and reconciliation piece that's included with the community, and specifically from the meetings that happened at the church. Voices, you know, I feel like the parent voices here at our school haven't been heard in the way that they felt that they were kicked out of their school, that people had told them that their parent community was incarcerated and, addicted to drugs and, had some really strong things thrown at them. And I feel like that there hasn't been a process to deal with that and bringing the communities together. We have this really great opportunity to heal, and I don't see that piece reflected here, and I think it's critical.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Other cautions, concerns? Yeah, please.
One concern was the voices missing from this room. I think Kirsten mentioned it earlier. Those who speak Spanish as their first language, they're not in these meetings. And so we wanted to have that presence in these conversations and in the development of this plan.
Going off of that with the dual language, I think really clarifying to the community the difference between an immersion program versus an integrated program versus the dual language model, and making that extremely clear, because there are huge differences in those. Also, I would be really curious, it didn't say in here, it talked about bringing in teachers from of people of color, but how is the school providing childcare for those teachers to put them in our community, and are those teachers guaranteed spots for their kids at this school if they are coming from elsewhere? And then I'm a little bit concerned about the wide range of amazing things that are listed here, and is it a reality to actually go deep dive into some of those topics in the classroom if the teachers are trying to touch on so many different things, unless the teachers are really given lots and lots of professional development on research-based approach and project-based learning.
And I just wanted to add to that is the part of STAR, that the R is research. I know Atoko mentioned that relates to project-based learning, and I think that needs to be emphasized, because that's a great concept at Willow Creek that does enable the deep dive into the different subjects and kind of accomplish a lot in a very deep way. And I don't know if the community, if it's not fully emphasized, especially from teachers in the communications, that people will understand that project-based learning is definitely part of this program. We were worried a little bit about what is the timing. So if everybody gets really excited about this overall vision and programming, is people will want to know, especially teachers, do I have a job? Am I going to be part of it? And so what is the plan to integrate the current teachers of both school into this vision? I'm sure they'll be very excited to work here. And then the last thing is, also it seemed like there's a lot of great partners, which are fantastic. Emerald City, part of the program. There was a question of we fully brought in a lot of the good partners in the Sausalito community as well. Like there was a mention, the Marin City Library and partnering in the arts here, but there's also the Sausalito Library and a really deep art community in Sausalito.
Great. Yeah. Any other feedback on cautions, concerns? Thank you. And the third question was, what's necessary for the two schools maybe to create this world-class educational program working together? Did anyone get to that question? You have a thought?
We didn't get to it, but I just would echo what Mr. Holcomb shared at one of the last meetings about finding a way to deeply involve the staff at each site so that they can be part of envisioning how this can all come together. Because if we're going to be relying on the staff to actually make it so, with leadership, of course, I think that we need to figure out a thoughtful way to seek their engagement and work not only in each camp, if you will, but together.
Okay, thank you. In a moment, I'm going to invite the superintendent to make. Did you have a?
I was going to say, I think it's at both levels. I think that we've got to make sure that we're doing a lot of collaboration with teachers and staff, because that is critical. They've got a ton of questions, and we have to remember, this is their livelihoods. And so making sure that they are not only bought in, but understand their place is super important. And then I think the same thing with families. I think we've got to be really thoughtful about how we bring families together. I think it's super important for us to all be really thoughtful about our words. Our words can be really positive, or they can be really hurtful. And so I think it's important for everybody to have a lot of open dialogue around that.
Thank you. Okay, a couple comments that I'd like to share, and then I'll invite the superintendent to make any closing remarks. One, for decades, the research has said the same thing, that when you're dealing with students who are not performing well in schools, that the problem starts at readiness for school, stage 1, grade performance at the 3rd grade, whether or not you're at grade level at the 3rd grade, and whether or not you transition into high school. So in all of that you do for students that are underperforming, keep your eye on those 3 targets. Now, and the 3rd target largely depends on what you can do with the 2nd, and the 2nd target largely depends on what you do with the 1st. So the preschool program that's being proposed may be a giant step forward to readying students to be at grade level in math and reading, those 2 areas, in 3rd grade, which would almost certainly enable them to make successful transition at the high school level. So that's point 1. Secondly, whatever you do, it won't be slam dunk, it'll be a process. And if you think about year 1 and 2 as a combination of transition and healing and reconciliation, that you go through a whole process across the community. If you move forward in this way, on the one hand with the healing and reconciliation as a primary focus of what goes on, and the other, it's a year or 2 of transition around all the issues and questions that people have raised in terms of laying the foundation then for the program to be fully implemented, within a couple years. But you will phase in the implementation of the program on the one hand as a priority, and on the other, you just simply have to see as a parallel process, whether you call it community engagement or whatever, it really is this reconciliation and healing. And thirdly, people get really, really busy, everyone, but over-communicate. Keeping people informed at every stage, whatever their role or station in this process, just will bode you well. Even though you can't see the tangible results of that kind of communication, it just in its own way makes the journey really a lot easier in terms of preventive kind of a preventive way of preventing just a number of things that are almost certain to unfold if people lack information about where you are and what you're trying to do and what you've accomplished and what the challenges are and where you've made your mistakes. But bar those things, I think this is a great journey to be on. Please.
Thank you, Dr. Omowale. And I just want to thank all of you again for your tireless, passionate dedication, commitment, time, energy, feedback. Chop it up. It's going to get a lot better with all of your feedback. I appreciate the points about communication. I appreciate the points about healing. Those are 2 big things that I just heard right now, and I want to invite you to email me or use Basecamp or give me your thoughts. This plan will get dramatically better with all of your feedback, and that's why you're here. So thank you all for being patient with this process. I think I want to give some time. As I said, I'll post a link to the whole plan digitally on the website, so all of you can read it. What's not there is stuff that you've seen at all the other meetings, but just want to make sure that folks have access to the comprehensive document. And Dr. Omo and I will meet with the expert advisors soon. I think it's clear that we probably need a whole meeting just for feedback, but we will present this plan next Wednesday at the March 11th special board meeting. And so I'll make sure that I do my best to incorporate feedback between then and now to give it a second iteration. I may hear some things from the Attorney General. The Attorney General has the same copy of what you have here. And so I will also try to update the plan with any feedback that the Attorney General may have in between then and now. And then we still have some time. And so we'll meet with the expert advisors and calendar another meeting where we can come back and just have a really big, deep round of feedback once everybody's had some time to read and digest and reflect and see what else might happen out in the world or the community that will support the development of a better plan. So thank you all. Have a good evening, and I invite many of you to stay for our board meeting that's about to happen now.